people think, oh, well, the only way I can meditate is if I sit on a cushion and I just try to make my brain be really quiet. And maybe they tried a couple times and their brain is very chatty, which is the nature of the mind, and then they give up. When you're in a state of anger or state of fear, state of shame, you can't access the creative juices for a solution, for a practical solution. So it's
Correct.
only just going to escalate, burn energy that none of us need to burn. So, it's hard. And all meditation and all these exercises are key to regulating your nervous system. And
That's what it
again,
is.
if we have a regulated nervous system, we're going to be able to access all of our gifts, our talents, our thoughts, and bring
Yeah.
it to bear on the situation. May I be calm. May I be at peace. May I be free of pain. May I be free of suffering. And then you can flip it to the person. Let's just say you and I were having a difficult time. I might say, may Sean be at peace. May Sean know calm. May Sean be free of
Mhm.
pain. May Sean be wise.
Have you ever been in the middle of a real estate deal and everything's going sideways? The agent on the other side is being a lunatic. The lender is basically making everything worse, and you're doing everything you can to hold it together. If you've ever been there, this episode with Audrey Jacob is for you. We actually talk about meditation and how bringing yourself back to center can be the game changer that transaction needs right now. Episodes like this and many of the past would not be possible without my friend Andy Bovender out of the Carolinas. He sponsored more than a few of these episodes, and I owe him a huge thank you. And with that, he's the referral partner of this podcast, meaning if you have a client who's been thinking about making a move to or out of the Carolinas, him and his team are the folks to call. They've helped more than 5,000 clients. And so their systems, their practices, everything they're doing on the back end is dialed in. So if you want them to have a superior level of experience and service, hire Andy and his team. In addition to, if you want to hang out with Andy and Audrey and a whole bunch of other past guests, take a look at the link below for the Inner Circle group. It's a group of a lot of past guests, top performing agents. We get together 2 times a month and we talk shop. We share best practices. We talk about where the industry's going, and we talk about the markets, how we can service our clients better, and how we can actually grow collectively. So if you're interested in learning more about that and joining the waitlist, click the link below. And as always, I'm your referral partner out of San Francisco, Sean Conkler. Audrey, you're such an interesting lady. There's so many different questions that I want to ask you, because you've had a legal practice, you now sell real estate, but you're in the meditation space. Uh, and I should say, in addition to selling real estate, tell me more about this book that you're working on.
Well, I am writing a book. It's a meditation companion. So I find that a lot of people are curious about meditation, but they have a lot of judgments and conditioned responses to it. So people think, oh, well, the only way I can meditate is if I sit on a cushion and I just try to make my brain be really quiet, and maybe they tried a couple times and their brain is very chatty, which is the nature of the mind, and then they give up. It's also a lonely proposition. So this book is going to be a meditation companion, and the idea is that it's a gathering of people's stories and their meditation journeys. So I'm interviewing just about anybody who shows up in my life who has tried meditation or has a meditation practice and is willing to be interviewed. And it's really providing some very interesting insights. And I feel that and the idea is that people will pick it up each day in the morning, whenever they choose to meditate. Of course, it's recommended to do a practice in the morning and in the evening before you go to bed. But I do recommend starting out small with 5 or 10 minutes in the morning. And so they can pick up this book. It'll be sectioned into four parts, and then there'll be weekly segments so that people can use a part for support each morning. And uh, I'm hoping that when people hear other people's experiences, and also they can, if they want, they can start to imagine that this book of people is sitting and meditating with them in the morning. So it kind of cuts a little bit against the loneliness or the isolation, and hopefully people will feel a bit more supported in their practice.
What do you think the biggest misconception most people have around meditation who've never done it?
Um, I feel like people think it's very limited and very hard and inaccessible,
Hmm.
and also maybe those are the big, and that they can't do it. That that they just feel like, oh, I've tried a couple times and I can't do it. And a lot of
Yeah.
times that's without any support, without a teacher, without a community.
Mhm.
And the reality is the meditation world and the practices that are available are very large. So I
Yeah.
actually pulled out three like simple practices that we could talk about today that relate to
Yeah.
um, the job and role of a real estate agent. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. And I like, your point and subtle point. It's a practice. And especially when you're starting meditation in the early days, it's really hard. It's like
mhm,
trying to ride a bike while somebody else is trying to knock you off of it.
exactly. I think another misconception too is that it'll be a linear trajectory. Like once you start meditating and start practicing, you'll get better and better and better. And the
Yeah.
reality is, if you're tired, if you're stressed, if you haven't
Yeah.
practiced for a while and you sit down, you may not have as good a quote unquote quality of practice, but you could have meditated for 20 years and you can still have
Mm.
kind of a chatty mind. Do you have
Yeah.
a meditation practice, Sean?
I no, currently no. I go in and out of it. Um, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but when my parents divorced in the early '80s, and my mom was a leftover hippie, loved her to death,
Mhm.
and I was probably 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there,
Mhm.
and she was meditating regularly and brought me to this gentleman Mohammed who taught me to meditate. So I learned
Mhm.
how to do it at a very young age, but it's hard and I fall in and out of it. And so to answer your question, I don't currently do it, but I have had big periods in my life when I did it very consistently for a long duration of time.
Mhm. I have several people that I've interviewed so far, and that is their history.
Mm,
In fact, there's another person, and he is in a similar situation. His mother brought him to her guru, and that guru gave him a mantra,
yep, that's what I got.
which he actually held on to and practiced on and off throughout his life. And
Mm,
that's another myth, I think, too. Many people that I've spoken with have picked it up on and off throughout
yeah,
their lives, and inserted it. And that's okay too. I'm trying to get people to feel like somewhat anything goes, but also at the same time developing a bit of a discipline, a determination, a practice, and then being able to see and understand the impact that can have on
yeah.
people's life and where their lives are headed. So,
I'd be willing to bet the hardest part of your day isn't the work. It's the mental load. It's the decision fatigue. It's the shuffling of priorities while you're already playing catch up. You're checking off things from your to do list just as fast as they're getting added. And I'd also be willing to bet some of those meaningful business relationships you've had in the past have begun to fade. Ace Your Day is a physical deck of 52 strategic cards designed to halt fatigue. Refined by real world results, this system replaces chaos of a to do list with a curated set of high impact actions. It's simple: set a timer for 15 minutes, draw a card, and make your move. The deck handles the thinking, you drive the business. Building a secure business should not be a guessing game. Let's stop overthinking the day and trust a system that prioritizes connections and relationships. Let the deck handle the strategy, you focus on the results. Click the link in the description to reclaim your day 15 minutes at a time. I mean, it's fascinating when I do it and I do it with regularity. A couple things happen for me is once I get on the streak, then I don't want to break the streak. So then I continue to do it. And to your point earlier, you have good days, you have bad days, and it just kind of flows in and out. Um, but similar to real estate, it's like I do this one thing a lot. I get busy from doing that thing. So then I stop doing that thing and I'm no longer busy, i.e., closing deals. And
Mhm.
then and
Mhm.
then you're like in the valley and you're like, well, what do I do? Let me go back to doing that thing and then get real busy, close a lot of deals, stop doing that thing because I'm busy, and then you go back into the valley. And so similar to meditation is like you do it consistently, you feel really good, life's going well, you stop doing it, and then everything kind of falls apart. And you're like, oh shoot, I need to go back to doing it. And you do it and everything goes really well for a while. And you're like, oh, I can stop doing it now. And then it falls apart.
Exactly. Well, you bring up something interesting, as well. One of, my interviewees, uses a meditation app, and there's a lot of great apps out there to use, and that's really fun. But
There are.
he was saying to me, Audrey, I meditate because I know it's good for me. It's like flossing my teeth. I do it because I know it's good for me.
Yeah.
And he was, and I do it because I don't want to break my streak. I want my gold star. I'm doing it for the gold star.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting about his story is that his life has taken off in really incredible creative ways over the last uh 5 to 7 years.
Amazing.
But but he was more focused on the gold star, and he was a little bit disconnected from understanding that meditation
Mm.
might have had an impact on his journey. And again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a guru, I don't know, but it was just interesting for me to be able to reflect back to him. I think you're getting a little bit more than gold stars out of this, but if that's what motivates you, and that if that what is that and that what gets you to practice, I
Mm.
think even if you're not conscious of the impacts of meditation on your life or your energy, there are going to be results. You might just not connect the two, if that makes sense.
I would completely agree. It's, uh, eh, I mean, to bring it to business, it's like you have the tangible uh, aspects of the business. You can measure how many deals you did. You can measure how much money you have. You can measure. There's a lot of analytics you can actually quantify. But then there's the whole non-tangibles. It's, did you enjoy the experience with that last client? Did the client enjoy it with you? Like, did it feel good? And there's a lot of things that you can't necessarily measure. Like, is the culture with my team positive? Is it healthy? Are we collaborative? And you can't put a number to that. It's really hard to put dollars and cents to that. And I think meditation, in my life, in my experience, it fits into that second bucket. It's really hard to say with a definitive measure, oh, my workout that day was way better because of meditation,
Mhm.
or the way that I showed up for my client or whomever it was, I was more grounded and more centered because of that 15 minutes I spent earlier. It's a little bit more elusive than that.
Right, exactly. I think one measure that some people experience is with a consistent meditation practice. They start to be aware of more serendipities in their life, or
Yeah.
maybe magic, if you will. And once you start to perceive those things and you can kind of connect it
Mm.
back to your experience on the cushion, um, yeah, but that's just one way that people can start to say, "Oh, I'm just curious." Maybe that has to do with the fact that for the last 14 days I've sat, I've practiced every day. So, but
How long have you been practicing?
I started practicing in 2013.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I took one of the, so there's kind of two different ways that we in the West kind of pick up meditation or mindfulness. It can
Mhm.
either be through some of the, there was a group of people in the 70s who went to the Far East and went to ashrams and came back to the States. And the one group that I'm kind of connected with is the insight meditation movement. And that's John Kabat-Zinn and
I know that name.
yeah, some of the, so, and they started a number of insight meditation centers. There's one in Santa Cruz. There was one in San Francisco. It sadly just closed. There's one in Redwood City. There's one in Boston. There's one in DC. They're kind of all over, but and it was it's but through that insight meditation as well, there's also a branch where it was John Kabat-Zinn who developed the mindfulness-based stress reduction workshop. So more like calling meditation a mindfulness,
Mhm.
which is a bit more. I really think they're one and the same, but some of the more sophisticated people can, make a distinction between meditation and mindfulness. But I started with that workshop in 2013, and it was with that teacher in that 12-week course, she actually recommended using the Insight Timer, which is one of the early apps for meditation, and I still use it today. It's very robust. It has a timer. It has lots and lots of different guided meditations, accesses to courses. I still use the free method, but you can pay for it and get more access to courses. They also now have a whole listing of retreats around the world that you can attend, lots of teachers you can follow. And I started using that timer and practicing every morning. And again, I think a little bit what helped me get started was having the stars for the practice and having something other than just myself to support the practice. So it wasn't just me sitting on a cushion trying to watch my breath. There was a timer with some chimes, and yeah, it just felt supportive. So I started that in 2013. Um, and you didn't really ask this, but the book and a deepening in my practice occurred during the pandemic. So I found myself, um, and this is true. I think when the pandemic hit, we all needed a refuge. We needed a place to go. We needed a place to feel safe and with some sanity. And so I really dug into my practice. And it became very helpful. And I'm going to tie this back to real estate because wasn't very far into the pandemic, and we as realtors became what do they call us? Essential workers.
Yeah.
And I know some people are like, "Oh, why did you receive that status? You're just salespeople, blah blah blah." But the truth is that we, we my clients at the time, I had several things in motion. They needed us.
Yeah.
We all of a sudden were called to the front lines and had to shoulder a lot of responsibility because we were responsible for cleaning once we were allowed in, we were responsible for cleaning properties, managing
Yeah.
showings, helping keep nervous buyers and sellers who were in process, right? Uh, Doing whatever we could to keep things going, to keep people safe, to keep ourselves safe. So I really dug into my practice because it was
Yeah.
the one space where I could feel safe, contained. My kids, some of my kids moved back home. So there were
Mm.
more people in the house. You couldn't, yeah. So and out of that, I decided to develop an online course
Oh,
for
smart.
meditation. So that started in April of 2021. I teach it every Thursday night. And the first 12-week class was really just like an introduction to
Mm.
meditation
Yeah.
for beginners. And then, recently I've developed some coursework centered around helping people use meditation to survive and thrive in difficult times. My students really ask me, how can we use meditation to just, cope these days?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, which I find, uh, yeah, the pandemic is definitely when I leaned harder into my meditation and my workout practice, because it was like I just needed to burn off that energy and really needed to recenter myself. But it's fascinating. As I shared earlier, I tend to go in and out of it. In the days or the times, the seasons when I go into it, it's usually crisis. It's usually really bad shit's happening in my world. And it's me feeling out of control. I'm like, okay, I really need to get myself back on center so that I can show up and do all these other things. And I agree too with apps. They are so easily accessible, um, that if somebody knows zero about meditation, there's hundreds of different types and styles you can try. And that's always my thought and recommendation is just try and see which ones start to resonate with you, because we're all so very different. And I definitely have patterns in my life when different styles of meditation
mhm.
have kind of stuck. Like when I was younger, the mantra one totally didn't work for me. My years now, my 50s, it works way better. And so it's like, it's sometimes you just got to try stuff.
Right. Well, another misconception that you asked me about earlier is that meditation is only for us when we're sitting on our cushion or sitting on, like what I call the formal practice.
Mm,
And the formal practice can be done sitting, standing, lying down, or walking. But
yeah,
there's a whole realm of informal practice or practices on the go, I will call them.
yeah,
So I actually kind of focused on three more little bit on the go practices that maybe can help real estate agents.
yeah,
Um, Again, it helps to have the formal practice on your cushion. It that then anchors or grounds you for the day. And then when you're going through your day, you can have maybe a little bit more access to some of the informal practices.
mm,
So,
mhm.
do you want me to go over
Yeah,
talk about
please.
those?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear.
Hey, friends, I have a small favor to ask. For me to continue to bring you outstanding guests who share their best kept secrets for growing a successful real estate business, please take a moment and hit that like button so agents like you can find this content. And also hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Now, back to our show.
Yeah, I can talk about them. I'm sure we both have stories that can go for all of them. So, the first one is the mindful pause with a breath exercise.
Hmm.
So, let's say we're in a set of negotiations or we're having to do a difficult call, either with an agent on the other side of a transaction, or maybe our own client has gotten upset about something and we have to try to arrive at a solution. And I think
Mhm.
as we have talked, a lot of our role as agents is to lead the process and be the guide and be honestly the emotional leader of the transaction. Because if we can keep everybody calm, and certainly the way we show up for the transaction impacts the whole team that we are.
100%.
So if we can stay calm in the midst of chaos, then we have a lot better chance of bringing the whole team along in a way that even if it's a little bumpy at the end of the transaction, everybody involved, even some of the maybe difficult people, are
Yeah.
going to come away and remember how they felt about it. And part of it is they
Yeah.
will, they won't. I don't even think people really acknowledge that we're that kind of a leader, but we'll know it if we mess up. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
the mindful pause and with the breathing practice would be to when you're triggered or you're in this situation and you recognize it, being able to recenter a bit in your body
Mm.
and take there's just two breathing practices that I'll talk about. It's the box breathing and triangle
Okay.
breathing. So for box breathing, you inhale for say whatever count feels comfortable. I'll just say 4. So you inhale for 4 counts, you hold at the top for 4 counts, you exhale for 4 counts, and you hold at the bottom for 4 counts. And I find that even doing that one time helps, but if you can do it up to like 3 to 5 times,
Mhm.
and you can be a little bit quiet about it because you may be in a meeting, you may be on a phone call, maybe you can only get one cycle in. The other that I actually prefer is the triangle practice, and that's where you breathe, inhale for a number of counts, exhale for a number of counts, and then hold at the bottom for the same amount of counts.
Hmm.
That feels a little, the box breathing for me feels a little bit I feel more like I'm holding or something. But again, I would just encourage people, as you said, Sean, is that there's so many different things, and you can try to experiment with these practices. And all of these practices are going to be in my book so that
Yeah.
people can access them over time. So, that can come in really handy when you're on the phone. I remember I had one agent who, during the pandemic, submitted an offer to me ahead of the offer date and then acted like he hadn't seen my email about the offer date. And then, once you receive an offer, you're required to show your clients. And the thing
Immediately.
is, it wasn't full price, and the buyer had a bridge loan. And I already knew that I was like probably going to be entertaining 5 offers,
Yeah.
and, so I was very polite and said, "I'm just really sorry. I've shown this to my clients. They want to wait till the offer date. Your client, here are the options for your client, you and your client." And he proceeded to, I notice a lot of times when other agents don't have a negotiation position, then they try anger.
Yeah.
And so he just was like ripping into me like I didn't know what I was doing. I just remember sitting there and grounding and pausing and breathing during this assault. This is a phone call, during this assault on the phone. And I think he expected me to like fight back or do something. And I was able to access like a sense of calm,
Yeah.
and I just, I was like, "Thank you, and, let me know what you and your client would like to do."
Yeah.
And, "Great, thanks." And the silence on the other end of the phone, because it wasn't what he was expecting.
Yeah.
But the reality is he and his client did come back. He actually apologized, and then several years later, he called me about something, one of my listings, and when he was done, he said, thank you very much for taking my call," because I think he realized he had put himself in a position of me potentially never taking his calls again. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's a way that, a lot of times when somebody comes at us, we want to just come back at them with
Yeah.
the same and more, and doesn't always get us what we really want. And what I wanted was them to resubmit, and that's what they did. So
Yeah.
so that's that practice.
And I love that. I'm gonna pause you really quick.
the box breath, uh, I've heard, I don't know if this is actually true, but it's taught to the Navy SEALs when they're in high stress or about to go into high stress situations to regulate their bodies and their minds. And so it's very effective. I mean, it's the military is using it. It's a very effective technique that could be used. Um, and it's funny in those negotiations I have found in my experience is when both agents get to that point where it's overboiling,
Mhm.
nothing good is going to come after that.
No, when you're in a state of anger or state of fear, state of shame, you can't access the creative juices for a solution, for a practical solution. So it's
Correct.
only just going to escalate, burn energy that none of us need to burn. So, it's hard. And all meditation and all these exercises are key to regulating your nervous system. And
That's what it
again,
is.
if we have a regulated nervous system, we're going to be able to access all of our gifts, our talents, our thoughts, and bring
Yeah.
it to bear on the situation. So it's
Well,
very helpful.
and they've done studies on that as well, where when the mind is calm and centered, it's more resourceful
Hmm.
and creative than when it's in a heightened fight or flight or freeze
Hmm.
scenario or chemical makeup. And so if we're going into a negotiation, a really hard one where
Hmm.
we actually have to problem solve, the more calm we can approach it, the far more resources internally we're going to have access to,
Exactly.
and thus be able to deliver for our client.
And I think just another way to insert the mindful pause is when you're working on a problem and you're not coming up with a solution,
Yeah.
is to just take a break from it, go for a walk, do some breathing, uh, but anything to again recalibrate your nervous
Mhm.
system, and then remind yourself that you have these great resources in your mind and you can be really creative
It's true.
as well. So
Yeah, and even just simply on a chemical, like if you and I got into a spat, or let's say we didn't get into a spat, let's say you were driving and a car cut in front of you and you had that huge adrenaline spike and there was like this emotion, your body doesn't just come back to baseline. It takes a minute. Like it takes I think statistically it's 20 minutes for your
mhm,
body to fully hormonally and chemically return back to its baseline of zero. And so to your point, if you're in a weird negotiation and you have time, literally go take a walk.
mhm,
Get
yeah,
your nervous system back down, get yourself back into a resourceful state, have that conversation with your clients or pause your client, say, hey, you know what? Let's just put this down for a minute. We have until 5 p.m. tonight. There's plenty of runway. Let's just kind of absorb this for a minute and let's reconvene in an hour with some solutions.
yeah. That's a great technique. The same thing with when clients have to make a decision. I often, if there's an opportunity, want them to be able to sleep on it.
Yeah.
I think another key about our business is we have to know when to slow things down and when to
Yeah.
speed things up. And there's really been a lot of time in my real estate practice that having the awareness to slow the process down
Yeah.
reaps a lot of benefits. And I think there's a general conception that all we want as real estate agents is close, 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 move, move, move. And yes, sometimes that's what's needed, but I think it's really important to recognize when we need to slow everything
Yeah.
down. Um,
Something I share with my clients all the time is addendums. Addendums are an amazing, beautiful thing.
mhm.
Like, worst case scenario, if everybody wants to keep this deal together, we'll
Mhm.
write an addendum and just push the deadline.
Yeah, there's always, I think, just from my law background, there's always an exception. There's always a waiver. There's always an extension. There's
Exactly.
always, for every problem, there's a solution. It's just, we have to be in a state of mind that we can
Yeah.
access those solutions.
Well, I think that's your earlier point. If we can maintain being that agent who's always looking for the solution to the problem and not be the agent who's looking for the problem to the solution, we're going to
Mhm.
put our clients in a much better
Mhm.
space. Not just strategically to get the property or to sell the property, but emotionally as they get to that experience. Because I've had deals where the lender was an absolute lunatic, just literally throwing fuel on the fire with everybody and making everybody frantic for zero reason.
Mhm.
And it's awful.
Yeah, you just it and there you just have to take the high road as much as you can to try to
Yeah.
get through it at the end of the day. Well, speaking of difficult people, that's another practice that I have. So, there's, I don't know if you've touched on this in some of your practice, uh, Sean, but the loving kindness practice.
Hmm.
So, what I recommend to people who are dealing with difficult people, and I think in my real estate practice or business, most oftentimes the difficult people are the lender or it's really been the agent on the other side. Those have been my most difficult people. And so when you find yourself in that situation, you can take a moment or two to do a like mini loving kindness practice.
Hmm.
So this is, maybe from the Christian faith too, of like praying for your enemies, sort of thing. So the idea is that for anyone who's difficult in your life, you take some time away to um, uh, focus on a loving kindness meditation for this person. So you could just sit quietly and you may even want to start with yourself, which is, may I be calm, may I be at peace, may I be free of pain, may I be free of suffering. And then you can flip it to the person. Let's just say you and I were having a difficult time. I might say, may Sean be at peace. May Sean know calm. May Sean be free of
Yeah.
pain. May Sean be wise. No, I don't know. No, not really. But the idea is to send, through the energetic space, some wishes, some well wishes for this difficult person. Because at the end of the day, even if someone's being difficult, they're human.
Mm.
They have all the same needs that we do. They want to be loved. They don't want to be in pain. They don't want to be in fear. They don't want to be, so I think it really can help when you're dealing with difficult people to remember their humanity. And I
Mhm.
do think if you practice
Yeah.
that consistently, you can show up differently when you're dealing with that difficult person. So that's just
Yeah.
another great practice.
Mine is less polished, but I try to remind myself that the average IQ is less than 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're people are doing their best.
Yeah, that's true.
And they
And
don't like we're not all the same. We're all out here doing our best. I actually just recently heard that when somebody's triggered, they're actually being triggered at the age they were when they were traumatized. And it's
oh,
like
yeah.
similar to what you're saying. It's like it it reminds me to give them a little bit of compassion
Mhm.
and grace. Not like a pass for being a jerk, but
Right.
you kind of approach it with like that guy berating you on the phone. You don't know how he arrived there or
Right.
like how his clients have been treating him or the 10 deals that just blew up back to back to back to back to back that he's actually internalized and bringing to the table and is now spewing out of him and sometimes just remembering that
Right. I
it's
Yeah, it's what they're I definitely had a situation where, another agent unloaded on me, and, after the dust settled, I found out that he just had lost a $10 million deal, had just gone down the tubes, and
yeah
I was like, "Oh, okay." I Not that I wanted to be the beneficiary of his unloading, but it was like, okay, he's really having a bad day and he doesn't want, and he's fearful that now this transaction is going to go because we were having some issues in the
Exactly.
transaction. So now he's afraid that this one's going to go away too
Yeah.
because that one did as well. So,
It always reminds me of that saying, don't cry over spilled milk.
mhm.
But without context, you don't have the whole picture. If that same person who just spilled the milk, their spouse broke up with them, they lost their job, and their house is being foreclosed. That glass of spilled milk is now a huge catastrophe in their life. Or they just won $1 million and they just retired and that glass of milk spilled. It's fine. They'll buy 20 more tomorrow. It's like we don't know how that person is arriving to observe that thing that's actually happening.
Right, and we don't have control over the other people on the other side, but we do have control how we show up. So
Yeah.
if we're having a bad day, if we've lost something, again, that's where the mindful pause with a breath practice could help get so that we don't want to bring our personal lives or our personal struggles into this whole emotion, what is already an emotional roller coaster for people. And that's hard. I mean, we're human too. So we're going to
Yeah.
make mistakes. We're going to have days when we don't do that. So I have one last practice to help with that
Please.
when we mess up. And this is my course that I'm going to be starting to teach the
Mm,
beginning of May. And we're going to be doing self compassion and self care for building resilience and courage in difficult times. And so the
mm,
self-compassion practice is really it's really a Western adaptation of the loving kindness practice, and it's uh, growing out of the mindfulness-based stress reduction
mm,
field. So, and it's been spearheaded by a woman named Kristen Neff, who actually got her PhD at UC Berkeley, and then when she went to, I think she's at the University of Texas. She's now is like there's many people in this self-compassion movement, but Kristen Neff is really the leader, and they've done tons and tons of scientific studies on what the self-compassion practice can do for people.
mm,
And it's really a lot about confronting our own shame or disappointment. But if we
mm.
do have that situation where, which we all do, we get triggered, we do something, we make a
Sure.
misstep, we can take a self-compassion break. And it's really just a chance to bring that mistake, that whatever it happens to be,
Yeah.
into our mind and acknowledge that we are a human being in a, and we mess up sometimes, and so we can just take a moment to say, ah, this is a moment of suffering. This hurts. Ouch. And then we can go on, well, I'm not alone. Other this is I am a human being. This is part of the human condition. This happens to other people.
Mm,
And then just do a little bit of a loving kindness practice for ourselves, which is, may I be kind to myself. May I be gentle with myself. May I accept myself as I am. May I forgive myself. May I be strong. May I be patient. So,
mm,
any kind of like, it's really just a reframing of our self talk, but to really just take that moment when we feel embarrassed or shamed or we've had a difficult something that we feel responsible for or just isn't going with right in our life. So that's the self-compassion break.
mm,
So I think we have, what do we have? We have the mindful pause with breath practice. We have I'm calling it the self-compassion wish. And for that practice, I'm sorry, the loving kindness wish. That's the practice where we're
mm.
hoping for the best for our difficult ones, and then the self-compassion break. So maybe those will help our colleagues or help ourselves too, as we go about our work. But I definitely personally feel like I do my job better when I take the time in the morning to have some period of meditation and connection with um, the universe or
Yeah.
whatever spiritual practice people want to plug into it, they can, or they can just simply do a secular mindfulness practice.
And that's what I think is interesting too, is it can be done in conjunction with any religion.
It's really part of all the religions of the world. It's a practice that's contained within all
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
It's
They're just
just
labeled different.
yeah, they may be
Prayer.
called something a little bit different. Maybe the emphasis is more on prayer than meditation, but
Right.
it's there in
It's
every
there.
single. It's there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I find interesting, fascinating about most religion and beliefs. They all have overlap. It's pretty fascinating. If somebody's interested in learning more about your courses coming up or your book, what's the best way for them to come find you?
Right now, it's really just to send me an email.
Mm.
My website is under construction. My book is under construction. So I will just provide my personal email, which is Audrey, Audrey, docs, at gmail.com.
Cool. I will make sure that that gets out there for everybody. Audrey, this was awesome. I really appreciate your time and all that you shared.
Well, thank you, Sean. Thank you for asking me to do this, and I appreciate you too. I hope we'll connect some more in the future about our real estate practices and our meditation practice.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Okay, take care.